we have half an hour
Why
of
don't they have, why does?
summary, recap, and reflections, and I will spare you most of that. But
Americans hate the word history.
I wouldn't pretend to summarize what we heard today. And just a couple of thoughts while we still have our last panel up here before they run off. We had originally conceived this and put it together to look, at the idea of, does pricing certain public services actually have equity implications? And when, as this finally evolved, I think it got much broader than that, I think in a good way. One of the things that I took away from this was that equity means different things to different people in different contexts, and like someone once said that 50% of communication problems were caused by using different terms to define the same thing, and the other 50% of communication problems were using the same terms to describe different things. And I think that's what we have here with equity. So it's a convenient term because it can mean whatever you want it to. But I think there were some pretty simple things. One is that despite a lot of thinking to the contrary, economics does matter. I think it obviously matters here, where we're talking about things, energy, which has pretty direct and broad economic impacts. But going back to the first panel this morning on water, which is probably, of the things we talked about, the most fundamental. We need it to live, and the fact that, not charging, not pricing water really sends the wrong signals, which is inequitable in its own, because ultimately, I think at the end of the day in all these conversations, it is poor people suffer from whatever the system grinds out that's not good. And if we have problems in the system, ultimately they're going to filter down and affect the people least able to deal with those things. I mean, most of us, we may fret about certain things, whether it's being overcharged or charged too much to water our lawns, or jump into congestion-free lanes. We can manage. There are people that can't, and I think that was fundamentally what I wanted to look at here. And I think what we found is there's a lot of ways to address these issues, and that's good. One of the problems, though, is we heard in several of the conversations, our policies are often not congruent with our objectives, and policies tend to grow by accretion. So when we add something, we tend not to take something away that may prove counter to it. And I think it was very obvious in the discussion we had on affordable housing that some things that make some sense at one level have some pretty disastrous consequences at another. I guess the bottom takeaway, if we were to put a headline on top of this, the headline I'd write is that if we really want to have the poor segments of society have access to some of these services, don't make them free. And I think that some people may find that rather counterintuitive, that well, if people can't afford to pay, it ought to be free. Well, the problem is there's a small percentage of the people who can't afford to pay, and we can help them. But if we make everything free, we send all the wrong signals, and we end up in wrong places. So I would like to close this by personally thanking all the panelists, all the moderators, all of you who've sat through the day, for those of you who are hardcore enough to stick around, we have refreshments that should be starting momentarily, so it's an opportunity to chat a little bit more and avoid the traffic because we don't yet have HOT lanes, so the traffic will be terrible, so stay and have a bit of cheese and a glass of wine. And again, I would just like to thank everyone who participated. We made this a very productive day. So thank you.